Oh. Moving on, there was no public comments received for tonight's board meeting. Information and reports from the superintendent. Dr. Wortham?
Thank you, Ms. Charles Pierre. Good evening, board members and community. This evening, our mission statement. As a unified community, the East Ramapo Central School District is committed to educating the whole child by providing a healthy, safe, supportive, engaging, and challenging learning environment. Our vision statement, we will become proficient in all that we do. In our 5-point plan, we want staff and students who are healthy, safe, supported, engaged, and challenged, especially during this pandemic. This afternoon, our Summer Performing Arts Academy, Drumline. I love that ending. I love, love, love the drum line. This evening, we were able to host a live Q&A on our responsive return planning. We had over 600 participants on our Zoom, and we received over 1,000 questions. As a result of that, we will have a part 2 of the live Q&A on responsive return planning on tomorrow evening at 5:00 p.m. We will have an opportunity to respond to the remaining questions that we were not able to respond to this evening due to the time. So we invite the board and our community to please stay tuned for the link where we will continue to respond. Normally, the questions have been featuring around students with special needs, if they will return to in-person instruction, and the answer is they will, and they will return to in-person instruction prior to the hybrid model, and a date will be identified and will come forward from Ms. Tamar Walker, the Assistant Superintendent for the Students with Special Services Office. Our approach. I'm going to ask Ms. McVeigh if she would share our approach, our phase-in model. Ms. McVeigh, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction.
So I'm going to assist Ms. McVeigh today. This is Ms. Iwaha, just speaking on this particular approach, the phase model. So in response to several questions, we're providing once again, the breakdown of this phased approach. So East Ramapo is employing a 4-phased hybrid approach for our young people, and it begins with remote learning in phase 1. So then after that, each subsequent phase transitions to a new group of our population, moving from remote to hybrid learning, which is that combination of in-person and remote learning. So phase 1, as you see here in this visual, phase 1 begins with all of our K-12 students participating in remote learning. During this time of phase 1 remote learning, students, teachers, parents, they're gonna gain strength and confidence in the remote learning process, build strong routines, build strong procedures, and this is all part of preparing for the hybrid instructional experience. Then we move into phase 2. You'll see phase 2, it shows both hybrid, what's happening in hybrid and remote. In phase 2, we're introducing our kindergarten, 1st grade, 4th grade, 7th grade, 9th grade, and prioritize students to in-person learning. So that's gonna be approximately 3,500 students. What you'll notice here is that our early learners and students with disabilities are prioritized, as well as those transitioning grades in the buildings for the purpose of meeting the needs of our most vulnerable population of students up front. Phase 2 students will complete their ABC weekly rotation. So it's a 3-week rotation, they'll complete it. And after completing that rotation, we move into phase 3, where we introduce another subset of students, now totaling from 3,500 to about 6,500 students approximately. And we're gonna follow that same pattern in phase 3, and they will complete that pattern of their weekly rotation, ABC rotations, and then we gradually increase the students to conclude in phase 4, where all of our students are engaged in both in-person and remote learning. So we also want to take every opportunity to remind parents that right now, the parent preference form, which is the form that allows you to select between hybrid and remote learning, is now located on the district site. What you will need in order to access that form is your child's ID number. If you are without your child's ID number, you can contact, beginning tomorrow, the transportation department, as well as registration department, and then beginning next week, you should be able to contact the school building. Now, if we move to the next slide here, we are looking at the phases now including the dates. So phase 1 begins September 14th, and that's remote learning. Phase 2, where we move into the hybrid instruction, where we're now moving into students entering the school building, that begins October 13th with those identified students, and they're listed here. So the kindergarten, 1st, 4th, 7th, 9th grade, and special population of students. Then phase 3, students enter the school building, begin their entrance into the school building for the rotation cycle, November 2nd, and beginning November 23rd, that's when we're going to have all of our students, K-12, engaged in the hybrid learning experience. Now, what we want to make sure of is that it's clear that the district is going to be paying attention to a number of things as we move from phase to phase, and readiness to support transitions and the gradual increase in population is relative to the health and safety of our district. So just as a reminder, we are transitioning in 3-week intervals, and we need to make sure that we complete the rotation with the identified population, and we've made every attempt to be attentive to educating our students. So we are going to pay attention to a couple of things as we move from phase to phase, one of which is the current levels of community transmission. So that's informing levels of safety, just to check, for continued stabilization and improvement of COVID metrics. We will also pay attention to data indicative of staffing availability. Data monitoring relative to ensuring the availability, making sure there's availability of PPEs, which are the personal protective equipment, face coverings, cleaning supplies, and other resources needed to move from one identified phase to the next. And finally, the New York State Department of Health and New York State Education Department's guidance on physical distancing, hygiene, cleaning practices, and other public health precautions per formal assessment. Moving to this next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. West, who will speak on the model further. Dr. West?
Thank you, Ms. Iwaha. So, as illustrated in our return to school plan, students will alternate between weeks of in-person learning and that of at-home learning. Modifications to our traditional in-person schedule in response to the pandemic will allow for a third of the student population to report to school for in-person instruction for 4 full days per week, while the remaining population of students engage in at-home instruction. So once again, this mitigation effort allows for the close monitoring of the health and safety of our community. The proposed schedule provides a snapshot of the cohort student group rotations, dividing our grade level populations into a third. This will result in our students being assigned to either cohort A, cohort B, or cohort C. Each cohort of students will participate in a rotation of approximately 9 to 12 socially distanced students participating in in-person learning. So as you can see, if you're a student in cohort A, during the week 1, you are reporting to your school building for in-person instruction on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Week 2, you are at home. And week 2 and 3, you will be at home. If you're in cohort B, week 2, you're in person while cohort A is at home. If you're in cohort C, you come into the school building for your in-person instruction during week 3. Friday is reserved for what's called our flex day, where the building will undergo a deep cleaning. All students will be participating in remote instruction, and teachers will be participating in professional learning. Please note that for most students in special class placements, there will not be a need for rotations, as the size of the student enrollment of these classrooms already fall within the guidelines of maintaining social distance. And to speak more about that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Walker. Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Dr. West. I think you spoke to exactly what we need to make sure it's clear for families. Our special classes range from sizes of 8 students. We have classes of 12 students, and we do have classes of 15. And these speak to our special classes. These classes, for the majority of these classes, they are already within a number or a size that we do not need to place our students in cohorts. Therefore, those students will consistently be able to attend school in person when we begin that phased in, when they begin in-person instruction. I think, and overall in general, what the district is seeking for our classes that are slightly larger, our special classes of 15, we are working at the district level to look at the numbers and to arrange the classes so that we can maintain no more than 12 students in a class, so that students again can be in attendance consistently in person. So there will not be a need for rotation for those students. Thank you.
Let's move on to operations. Mr. Afedabo and Nurse Healy. Mr. Afedabo?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wortham. Good evening, board. As has already been stated by the previous speakers, student and staff safety and health drive this whole process and effort. To that end, we are addressing three very important areas that impact facility, safety, and health. Firstly, social distancing. We will reconfigure our classrooms to achieve the required 6-foot social distancing. For a classroom that's the standard classroom in New York State is 70 square foot. Based on that, we did a mock-up of a classroom and we're able to get about 12 students in the classroom. Some classrooms might get less depending on the configuration of the classroom, but the average is 12 students per classroom. So it's a very critical component that impacts facilities in terms of maintaining healthy healthy and safe environment for our students. The next item, again, is for safety and health, is personal protection equipment. The district has ordered significant amount of PPEs for our students and staff, going from gowns and gloves to student desk shields, staff desk shields for secretaries that encounter relationships with public. We've ordered and received dispensers for sanitizers. We already ordered and received thermometers, touchless thermometers, masks and gloves, face shields. So we are on top of this issue, but these are very critical issues for the return and reopening of schools. And last but not least, the one area that's extremely critical is cleaning and disinfecting of our schools. And to that end, our facilities will be cleaned based on the strict CDC and New York State Department of Health, as well as the State Education Department protocols for doing so. Frequently touched surfaces will be cleaned and disinfected frequently every day. But in general, all the buildings will be cleaned and disinfected on a daily basis. And then on Fridays, when there is no instruction, in-person instruction in the buildings, we will go through a deep cleaning process to make sure that come the next week, that our buildings are ready to receive our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Afedabo. And do you want to add value to this classroom?
Yes, that's exactly what I spoke to the social distancing requirement, we had to do this mock-up configuration to illustrate what the classroom will look like and how many students you can get into a classroom. Again, this is a standard classroom. It's about 770 square feet. We get about 12 students in that class with the teacher in the classroom.
And which building was this, Mr. Fedebo?
This was Summit Park.
Okay. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Fedebo, the other piece that we are working on is to secure storage containers so that we would be able to put the additional furniture, et cetera, in the storage containers at each school site, correct?
That is correct. We engaged our new architect engineer, and he filed what's called an LOI to the state education. It's a requirement to the state education department, and they acknowledge receipt of that, and it's filed under the COVID process, which means that it will receive, at least that's the way it's structured, it will receive expedited processing from the state education department. Again, he just filed it, and we expect to see that process expedited for us. But we do need those containers to store the excess furniture. As you can see in the illustration here, there's about a half of what used to be the desks in the room, and then there are other furnishing that you don't see in here that used to be here that are now going to be stored in these storage containers in order to make this provision for the classrooms. But that's in progress, Dr. Wortham.
In which, with the removal of that furniture, that is going to expedite the deep cleaning process that will occur on a weekly basis.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you so much.
Question, please.
Yes, Mr. Berkowitz.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is there any difference in the amount of children you can put in a room if you're using the desk shields?
No, there isn't. It's initially some people interpreted it that if you wore masks, then you don't have to social distance. No, if you wore masks, you still have to maintain the 6 feet social distance, according to the ERCSD guideline that we looked at.
I'm seeing something under social distancing in the reopening plan from the state. I'm not interpreting wrong. It said it's specifically appropriate social distancing means a 6 feet space in all directions, If used, physical barriers must be put in place in accordance with whatever, and may include strip curtains, cubicle walls, plexiglass, or similar materials. So I interpreted that to mean that if you have, I've seen some classrooms set up in other places where there's, let's say, there's a wall in front of the teacher, clear plexiglass wall in front of the teacher. And the teacher works from behind that, and the children are at desks. So I'm just wondering if we couldn't gain a few more seats in the class because we're having the desk plexiglass.
We actually, oh, sorry.
It's okay. I'm not criticizing. I'm just questioning.
No, I agree. That's we'd like to have as many students as we can have in the classroom, but again, the guideline indicated that at least that's the way a lot of the other districts are interpreting it. Required that even if you wore masks, you still have to maintain the 6 foot social distancing required for the students.
And so, Mr. Fedebo, you also served on the Rockland County Reopening Task Force. correct?
Yes, Dr. Wortham.
And the response to Mr. Berkowitz's question on that task force?
Actually, the state hadn't provided their guideline at the time the task force was in process. So a lot of this came after that. But the other directors of facilities that I spoke to, since the county committee also understand that this is the requirement, and that you have to maintain the 6-foot social distancing.
I'm going to ask Ms. Healy, Nurse Healy, can you add value to that?
I agree with what Mr. Fedebo was saying. The problem with the guidance, Dr. Wortham, is that it can be interpreted in a variety of ways. I did see something that it appears to indicate that if you have some sort of shield partitions, that it could reduce the amount of social distancing that was required. But when you look into that, as Mr. Fedebo was saying, it's a very, very tight situation in that if you move from that situation, you immediately have to be in a 6-foot social distancing. So it's almost impossible to reduce that 6-foot social distancing with the use of the shields that they're talking about. So what really has been discussed is that the best way to do this is to maintain the masks with the 6-foot social distancing, to be following it in the best way that the guidelines have stated.
In addition to that, initially we were under the impression that we could measure the desk from the center of the desk, but clarification has come from the Department of Health Special New York State Education Department to say no, the measurement has to come from the end of one desk to the next.
Thank you for clarifying that, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Berkowitz and Nurse Healy and Mr. Fedebo. Let's move on to transportation. Mr. Schwegler, Director of Transportation.
Thank you, Dr. Wortham. Good evening, board, community. Transportation Department has been extremely busy in preparing for the upcoming school year while adhering to the recommendations handed down by the State Department as well as the Board of Health. So we will begin with the school buses and how they are cleaned and disinfected. Our school buses operate on a 4-tier system in both morning and afternoon sessions. That means that they can do up to 4 routes in the morning and 4 routes in the afternoon for 4 different schools and 4 different groups of students. In between each individual route, the bus driver will have a spray bottle that would be used to apply a disinfectant solution. It's a fast-drying, 15-second dry time solution, which is CDC approved to disinfect the school buses. In addition, after each set of morning routes and each set of afternoon routes, the school buses go back to the contractor facilities where they are deep cleaned using a different type of solution for deep cleaning. And the buses are wiped down, especially paying attention to all of the high touch areas such as handrails, seats, seatbelt buckles, the walls where students may come in contact with, etc. The school bus staff has been trained. The contractors are currently running training seminars for their employees to teach them the proper application of these chemicals, as well as how to follow the recommendations that we have been given. This will include ensuring that everybody on the bus is wearing masks at all times. I am happy to announce that we did a little bit of redesigning today of our bus passes, and in bold red lettering, it clearly states that masks are mandatory at all times. So everybody who receives a bus pass will be able to see that message and understand the importance of their student coming to the bus with a mask. For those students who might forget a mask on any particular day, the buses will be equipped with a amount of face masks to be handed to a student so that we ensure no student would be left behind from the school bus. Our routing considerations, we designed our routes based on several criteria, again, strictly following the recommendation of social distance whenever possible. We are insisting again that face masks are worn by all students and bus staff. So that is one level of protection. The students who live in the same homes will be seated with each other in order to eliminate the separation of those students and increase the student population on the bus. Students are assigned to routes based upon the geography of their home and or assigned school bus stops. So that is how the routes were designed. With the cohort model that we are going to be using, the student population will be within the recommendations handed down to us. The student riders should be informed at home and in school by their parents and teachers the necessity of maintaining social distancing. When a school bus pulls up to the school in the morning, the doors will remain closed until such a time as bus staff come to open the door and let the students out and orderly go into the school where they'll have their temperature checked while maintaining the social distancing parameters. The same thing will occur in the afternoon. They'll come into the bus, they'll be seated in an order where the last student off the bus goes to the back of the bus. The first students off of the bus are seated in front of the bus, and this way the bus will be unloaded from front to rear. And again, in the morning, it will be just the opposite. The first student on goes to the rear, last student on is in the front of the bus. This way we minimize the necessity of students passing by other students who may be seated on the bus. So that is how the Transportation Department is preparing for the upcoming school year. Again, we will provide transportation for not only public, but our non-public, our special needs, and all students who are attending BOCES programs based upon that school or school district's reopening plans. Thank you, Dr. Worther.
Thank you, Mr. Schwegler, and please thank your team for hard work. And now, the parent preference form. The parent preference form, the board has requested that we move the date back. The date was on yesterday, and we have extended the date to August 21st. There is a shift in how parents can access the parent preference form, complete the form. It's now located on the district website. So they click on the link, they don't have to go through the parent portal. This is the parent's opportunity to select their choice for the first semester of school, whether all remote or remote and hybrid. And the hybrid model is 1/3 of our students attending school on a weekly basis. Remember, I've shared several times that we are the largest public school in Rockland County. And when we have 1/3 of our students, that's approximately 3,500 students in our district. Some districts in Rockland County their total enrollment is 3,500 or less. We believe our phase-in remote hybrid model is the model that is good for our students, for our staff, and for our community. Once again, we are the second largest district in the state of New York to transport our students. Having our students come to school, 1/3 of the population, definitely has an impact on transportation, as you heard. And with that, that concludes the superintendent's report, and I turn it over to our Vice President, Ms. Sabrina Charles-Pierre.
Thank you, Dr. Wortham. Moving on to consent agenda items. Motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 7. Don't forget to unmute. I'll move
if you'll figure.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second you. Who do I smell?
All in favor, say aye.
Anyone opposed?
Kathy, are you getting this? I'm not hearing anyone.
I didn't hear very many ayes, but I have the move and seconder.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed or abstain? Motion carries. Action items from the board. Kathy, for this one, are we going to do it like we normally do, where we have, where we say a certain amount of board members can reach out to you by a certain deadline to attend the conference?
I think that's a great idea. Normally we say we can do up to 4 board members, and it's down there either superintendent or interim superintendent, because we're not sure exactly when those changes will take place. Okay. So any board member who is interested who expresses tonight, we can add that, and I can modify that motion if the board agrees to say up to 4 board members.
How many board members do you have on the list right now?
There's no board members on express that they want to go yet.
This is not the one that this is not the convention that we spoke about. One of the previous board.
No, we talked about the CUBE convention at an earlier meeting. This is the NISBA, and it will be only virtual this year. And they're splitting it 2 days one week and 2 days the next week, all virtual.
You can put me on.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to go, who's here tonight?
I'm going to have to look into the dates and let you know, Kathy.
Okay, that's fine. I'll send an email to the board tomorrow, and then you can get back to me. So the motion would be for the superintendent or intern superintendent, Sabrina Charles-Pierre, and up to 3 other board members, if that's agreeable.
That's okay with me. Thank you. Motion to approve action items from the board 1 to 2, or just 2 for the conference.
I'll move. Y'all trigger.
Is there a second?
Mark.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone oppose or abstain? Motion carries. Action items from the superintendent. We have
Sabrina.
three addendums.
Sabrina.
Yes, Carol?
is it possible that I could ask a question at this time?
Oh, we have to make a motion first.
Okay.
Kathy? Can we do the action items and the addendum together, or does it have to be separate?
No, we can do them together. That's usually how we're doing now.
Okay. So motion to approve action items 1 through 2 in E and the addendum 1, 2, and 3.
I will do a motion. Ephraim Weiss Mandel.
Is there a second?
I'll second Joel.
I'm sorry, Carol, I believe you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, I wanted to know if I could, was this the time to make a request?
Kathy, I believe it's information and reports from the board, correct?
Correct. It would be after we finish the superintendent items when we get to information and reports from the board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You have the move and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone oppose or abstain? Motion carries. Information and reports from the board.
Okay. Okay. I was told by the clerk that I had to submit my requests to the board to receive the bills that the law firm of Morgan and Lewis charged East Ramapo Central School District for the NAACP lawsuit. I wanted to receive the bills from 2017 until now. Is that possible?
Ms. Charles Pierre, if I could give you a little information. Normally, those bills would not go to the board. So if the board as a whole wants to request the bills, they will be provided to the board as a whole, but it's up to the board to decide, as my understanding goes.
Well, I would like to know if that's not possible. I could FOIL for that information.
Well, let's see what you and your board colleagues decide first, and then we can talk about alternates after that.
But, is Mr. Gerard on the line with us?
Yes.
Douglas, this is Yehuda. Is this, I have a legal question regarding this. Are we allowed to discuss this in executive session?
Yeah, you can, sure.
So I'd like to, Ms. Anderson, I'd like to request if you could hold this question until later. I'd like to ask for legal advice in executive session.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Are we done?
I'd like to,
Anyone else? Information and reports from the board?
yes, I had a very nice experience. We got that notice early Sunday morning about our superintendent and the cabinet being on WRCR on the 10 o'clock show. It was a wonderful showing. Dr. Worthy did a wonderful job. All the cabinet members were right there and everything went beautifully. The main part of the show went from 10 to 11. And after that, I stayed on longer because Sabrina was there and a lot of more questions coming in, and I listened in, and I was actually able to follow. I used to be a French teacher, so I was pretty much be able to understand what was going on. And I'd just like to thank you for following up and the wonderful job was done reaching out to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Berkowitz, and thank you for your support in encouraging us to take to the airways to participate on radio stations. It was a great opportunity to reach out to the community. And again, I want to thank the cabinet members who allowed me to interfere with their time of worship to share with the community. It was a great experience. Thank you, Ms. Sabrina Charles-Pierre, for serving as well and for serving as our interpreter.
Thank you.
Mrs. Charles Pierre,
Yes.
this is Dr. Lowe. I don't know if this is appropriate, but I had put in there to raise your hand after the superintendent's report. But I did want to, number one, maybe out of order, but as a state monitor, really speak to the quality of your reopening plan and the work that's been done, Dr. Wortham and your team, your cabinet, not only as a state monitor in my other life. I've referred many people to your plan. I actually got a call this morning about someone that said, wow, the plan really is very detailed. And, I know that you spend a lot of time on it. And as I said, while unfortunately, the work that goes on in my time here has been really good and worthy. I just really wanted to commend you, Dr. Wortham, and your team for the reopening plan, your home learning plan. When that happened, despite some of the bumps in the road, I've shared with schools, take a look at their home learning plan, and it's been stellar. So, while you get a little knocks and bumps and grinds, I'm on East Ramapo's team, but as your state monitor, when things aren't right, we talk about it, but when they're good, they need to be complimented. So I just really want to commend not only the board, but also because the board works with the superintendent. And so that's the full piece, but also the fact that that reopening plan is really stellar, and the amount of time and detail that's been put in there. And yes, while I'm glad you referenced, while you used a consultant, that plan came from the cabinet and your staff. So I really do appreciate that. And this is how we do it at East Ramapo.
Thank you so very, very much. I think one of the board members shared something that was on Facebook, and they said that it was amazing that East Ramapo got it right. And they actually put up a caricature that said, "You nailed it." So thank you so very much, staff, community. Thank you for that recognition. Dr. Lowe, Mr. Berkowitz, we are so here to serve and to make sure that we do things decently and in order. I am still in awe over the fact that our mission statement absolutely speaks to this pandemic. We want to make sure that our staff and our students are healthy, safe, and we're supporting our staff, our students through the process. We have been engaging our community members, and we just believe we're moving in the right direction to see the forecast before we take the very next step. So thank you. I know my cabinet members are smiling right now, and you deserve to smile. No summer vacation, but they deserve to smile. Thank you so much.
Yes, job well done, Dr. Wortham, and to the whole team.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Information and reports from the board? Moving on. Future meeting dates. A regular meeting is scheduled for September 1st, 2020, beginning at 7:30 p.m. in the, Kathy, this is correct, at the PLCC Gymnasium in the Administration Building at 105 South Madison Avenue, Spring Valley, New York.
At this point, the governor has not extended the provision for Zoom meetings yet. So unless he does, we will meet in person. However, I was told there's a possibility he may extend that. And so if we change where the meeting happens, I will put it on the website on the district clerk announcements.
And I just want to remind the board that the governor grants the executive orders in 30-day increments. So let's stay tuned and we'll see if the executive order, as Kathy said, comes down for the next 30 days. That would include the next board meeting.
Thank you. Kathy, were there any written communications?
There were no written communications received since the last regular board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anticipated executive session.
All right, going to have an executive session to receive advice from council on the issue of the invoices that we just talked about previously, and also for discussion about matters leading to the appointment of a person or a company. And at this point, I guess there is a small possibility a motion might arise depending on the advice from council on the invoices.
Okay. Thank you. Motion to enter executive session.
I will have Prime Weissman.
Do I have a second?
I can second you.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone oppose or abstain? Motion carries.
Ms. Charles Pierre, just before we go to executive, I've been asked to tell the public that we will come back to the same Zoom link after the executive session.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good. Sabrina, can we bring it back into session?
Yes, I would like to call this meeting back to order. Kathy?
Yep. All right. Move for the board to adopt the following resolution. Whereas the board engaged a thorough process to seek an interim superintendent of schools, and whereas the board has completed that search and determined Dr. Raymond Giamartino is qualified to serve in the interim superintendent of schools role. Now therefore, based upon the foregoing, the board hereby, 1, appoints Dr. Raymond Giamartino as interim superintendent of schools of the East Ramapo Central School District for a period of time commencing on a date mutually agreed to between the board and Dr. Giamartino, but in no case later than October 1, 2020 for the 2020-2021 school year, consistent with the terms of an employment agreement negotiated between the board and Dr. Giamartino. And 2, approves entering into an employment agreement between the board and Dr. Giamartino and authorizes the board president to execute same with terms mutually agreed upon between the parties, understanding such agreement is subject to the final approval by the Board of Education.
Moved.
Motion moved by.
David Weissman.
Second.
Carol Anderson.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone oppose or abstain? Motion carries. Motion
Welcome
to
aboard.
adjourn.
Kathy,
Second.
just one item, Sabrina. Ms. Charles Pierre.
Yes.
Kathy, if we could just, I know we've talked about this in the past, just want to remind everyone, if I don't know what needs to happen in order for us to start moving forward on the ultimate search as well. I think it's never too late to get going on that.
I will check with Douglas, the best approach on that, Douglas and Mary.
I think
Douglas,
we had discussed possibly putting it out for an RFP or not. If Douglas can make a recommendation to the board at the next meeting.
I believe Douglas had said we didn't necessarily have to do a new RFP if we were happy with the firm the district used last time, which is generally everyone seemed to be.
Okay. And Kathy, can you do me a personal favor?
What's that?
Make sure the superintendent doesn't carry her furniture out with her when she leaves.
Some things are beyond the scope of my job.
Dr. Wortham, you better not take the couch.
Oh, you know that couch belongs to me, and half of those chairs, and definitely my desk chair.
And the district phone, you better leave here. You could take the barking dog out of the phone.
Memories. So So yeah, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion
Motion
to
to,
adjourn, yes.
I'll second.
who's
I'll
moving?
third.
Aye.
All in favor,
Good
say
night.
aye.
Aye.
Aye, bye.
Have a
Bye.
good night. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye,
send that
Michael.
mail back promptly, guys. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Right.